I can begin.
Yeah. Sorry, audience, got delayed little. So I would like to introduce Mihai. He is one of the globally renowned strategist. He is expert in the strategy, full cycle strategy transformations. Okay, so with vast experience over 2 decades of experience in strategy and strategy management. Okay, so he brings a rich knowledge in the strategy transformations. So over to you, Mihai. Okay, please share your thoughts in the strategy cycle.
Thank you very much. The subject that I would like to discuss, it's related to a full cycle of strategy management. I would like to just to say a few more words about myself. I'm an engineer by formation, but I have began around 15 years ago to work with strategy, and I began by first learning what the Kaplan and Norton balanced scorecard strategy management framework is. That happened, I think, in 2008. Since then, I have implemented and researched mainly the strategy execution cycle, which is managed through the framework that I have mentioned, and realizing that especially the strategy formulation part requires a certain development. I have focused more for a period of time on the cycle of formulating the strategy. Now, together, strategy formulation and strategy execution based on the Kaplan and Norton framework for strategy execution are forming what you see on the screen, which is the strategy clockwork. Strategy clockwork is a name that has been given to a cycle that is it's formed of several loops. There is one closed loop for strategy formulation and another closed loop for strategy execution, and especially the formulation of the strategy is enhanced, and it's enabled by something that it's called strategy experimentation. Strategy experimentation is something relatively new, which has been added to the framework, and the scope is to reduce the failure probability of our strategy by experimenting with the types of products and with the types of strategic choices that we are targeting with our strategy. So this diagram that you see on screen, it's relatively complex, but this is the level of complexity that matches the complexity of any organization, where processes and relationships and structures are inherently complex. If we take these 10 plus 2 stages diagram and discuss it a little by little, we can understand it probably much better. So this is what my intention is to do for a couple of minutes, and then I can introduce you to the opportunities that starts from January to better understand and to better use it in practical implementations. The Strategy experimentation that I have mentioned, it has two elements. One of it is experimenting with products, which is based significantly on design thinking. And the scope here is not necessarily to launch a new product, but to experiment with types of products, types of problems that customers have, types of jobs to be done, and also types of solutions to be delivered for them. The reason why I'm mentioning this is the fact that our strategy is not typically related to one product, it's related to a series of products. And we need to create a strategy or to update it for a series of products, a series of solutions that we are delivering to the market, targeting certain needs that customers do have. On the other hand, we need to experiment with strategic choices. This is called skunkworks because that's what a famous American company has as a laboratory for experimentation with a lot of new things, and it allows us to see which of the choices that are available to us have better chances of success if adopted into our strategy. And we can play with each of them, or with those that present the maximum probability of success, in order to allow the second stage of the framework, where we select strategic choices, to have the best chances of success. So this is what the reason for strategy experimentation is. It is coordinated by the Office of Strategy Management. It's a function within a company that normally doesn't exist, or might have not existed before the implementation of such a management system. And it's the coordination between the two types of experiments is required because the solutions that the types of solutions that we would like to bring to the market, and the choices about them need to be synchronized at some extent. And these experiments that we're making on the product side and on the choices side are going in parallel, but they have a way to be synchronized by the activity of the Office of Strategy Management. The strategic choices that I have mentioned are not just something like cost leadership and differentiation, but they are a lot of other choices. And we have seen more than a decade ago a reference model that is called the Delta model. It has been created by the late Arnoldo Hux, who was a professor at MIT Sloan School of Management. And what you see here is not a triangle as the Delta model was designed. It's actually a pentagon because it relates to other types of choices that we can use in our strategy. On screen, it's the penta model for problems to solve. And this is one dimension of the strategy. And we have another Delta model for solutions to deliver, which is the other dimension of strategy. It's the typical product market fit, which evolves to this level of I would say complexity, but it's a complexity that can be very easily explained if we go through each of the choices one by one. So on the Penta model beta, the one that is on screen right now, we have 10 types of choices for creating solutions for our customers. Actually, these are our choices for creating a competitive advantage from the point of view of the solutions that we are delivering to solve our customers' problems. The Penta model alpha is another set of 10 choices. It's actually strategic choices types, which are the alternatives that we have for targeting customer needs. And we have a variety of ways, going from segmenting, from looking into the way to get closer to the customer, from the positioning that we can occupy on the value stream, with ways of entering other markets and extending our types of customer needs that we can adopt. And this is just a catalog of choices for the problems to solve dimension of strategy. So it operates together with the other half of the Penta model as a way to enable our strategic choice stage, our strategic choices stage, with a catalog of choices from which we can select the ones that can be used for positioning our strategy. And this is what happens. We have the two dimensions of the strategy: problems to solve, which is typically the equivalent of the market, and solutions to deliver, which are equivalent of the product. And we combine various choices that are available in order to select those which have the highest probability of producing the economic results that we are aiming to acquire, helping us to I will stop in just a moment for the question. This is how we position ourselves, and we build our strategy foundation by making certain choices that are essential for our strategy. Let me look at the question. Can you help me, Abdul?
Yes, sir. So there is a question from Mr. Khalid Noor, and the question is research and development department same as the strategy experimentation function? So that's the question.
It's if you like to relate to a traditional structure of an organization, yes, I would say that most of the activity it's in the research and development department. But I would look at it more through the lenses of the zones to win. Geoffrey Moore has created the thought leader who is better known for the crossing the chasm theory. He also created 4 zones to win, which are 4 zones of core activities in the company, and one of them is called incubation, and you might say that yes, this is where the new ideas get into the shape of minimum viable products. So that would a research and development department do. But then we also have a zone which is called transformation, which takes those minimum viable products and turns them into commercially viable foundations for the competitive advantage. So I think that the concept for strategy experimentation, it's a little more complex than just the function, the organizational function of research and development. It's actually a way to develop a new competitive advantage. And you wouldn't go to the research and R&D department and say you need to create a new competitive advantage. Typically, they create new products and new technologies. The scope of strategy experimentation is to identify solutions for and combinations of choices for the next competitive advantage of an organization. So I would say that it's a little bit more than just the traditional R&D function. So I will get back to the presentation. The 10 stages that you have seen in the large diagram start with something which is traditionally called strategic analysis. It's the stage number 1, which takes care of several things. First of all, it identifies the business portfolio, and the business portfolio is not just a combination of products. It's not just the market share matrix. It's again related to the competitive advantages that we need to defend, to extend, or to create. And I would make reference here again to the Geoffrey Moore Zones to Win, which are overlapping over the 3 horizons of growth, which is a theory created by McKinsey. And it's about working in parallel on several strategies. One single strategy is not enough for an organization, because we might have an existing competitive advantage. If we don't, we wouldn't be selling anything to anybody. So if we have a competitive advantage, we need to enhance it and to grow, to scale it, but also to defend it against various threats existing in the market, which tends to reduce or deny this competitive advantage that we have. So we need to have a strategy for how we need to do that. But any competitive advantage that we currently have will not last forever. Therefore, we need to have also a next competitive advantage. And this is something that the experimentation and the incubation and the transformation are working on, and that is something that needs to exist as a separate strategy from the one that that is targeting the extension and the defending of the current competitive advantage. And we also need a strategy for even further solutions for the next competitive advantages, and that's something that will need to take place of the current competitive advantage and of the next competitive advantage, and we need to work in parallel on all 3 of them. Then the other thing that we do here is define the strategic horizons. And there are certain criteria that allow us to identify which are the inflection points, and inflection points on all 3 competitive advantages. And we have an inflection point for where the current competitive advantage might end, We have another one for when the next competitive advantage can take its place, and how long will it allow us to benefit from it. And then there is another inflection point for what comes next after that. So we have three strategies with three separate strategic horizons, in fact, not just a single one. And the third thing that we need to take care as part of the stage one, which is related to the related to strategic analysis, is related to strategic scenarios. And what we need to do here is to look at not just at trends and weak signals that allow us to define the context for our competitive advantages, but also to look at uncertainties, things that are obviously evolving, but may go either way. They can go positive or negative, or they can go to one extreme or another, and defines the strategic scenarios that are required for us to be able to look into the future and understand what kind of alternative plausible futures are expected for us. And why do we do this? We do this because we need to consider the strategic choices capability to provide the economic results that we wish in all the scenarios. If one combination of choices produces excellent results in one scenario but doesn't produce satisfactory results in others, then that's not a good foundation for our strategy. We need to select the choices which are going to produce at least satisfactory results in all scenarios. So this is the way the scenarios that we define in stage one are allowing us to filter the strategic choices that we select in the second stage based on their capability to produce the competitive advantages and to be able to defend the current competitive advantage in all the scenarios, whichever of them might be prevalent in the future. Obviously, we are looking at scenarios which are valid for the strategic horizons that we have defined. So the second stage it's allowing us to select from that catalog of choices on the two dimensions of the strategy, the choices which might allow us to achieve the success aspirations that are entering into our strategies, the demands that we have for the future and the expectations that we have for the future. And once we have that selection of choices, we can move further into the process by looking at the activities and capabilities required to support those choices. And at the moment when we have defined our strategic positioning, that's only an idea, a concept, something on a whiteboard. We don't know what is needed for that to happen, and that's what we need to look into, what is needed to support them. The timing for the three horizons, just to answer one question, it's never the same. Obviously, we have a shorter time horizon for the current competitive advantage. For how long will we be able to sustain it, to extend it, and to defend it? But then we have a time horizon for the next competitive advantage based on the new technologies, new types of products, new types of business models that we're launching as a new competitive advantage, and how long will we have for that to introduce it, to launch it, and for how long will that competitive advantage exist until the next inflection point, which is related to, again, to another competitive advantage that needs to replace it. It's if you would like to have the most let's say intuitive way to define the competitive advantages. It's what Professor Rita McGrath described as waves of competitive advantages, and we need to understand that each wave has its own time horizon, and we need to plan to have, for instance, available a next strategy by the time when the current competitive advantage will no longer produce the expected results, and how long after that we can count on it until again another wave of competitive advantage is required. And obviously we need to prepare them in advance and in parallel with our current competitive advantage. So those three horizons are different, and so their time frames are never the same. The third stage of this framework refers to the capabilities required to support our choices. That again represents the foundation of our strategy. First, we go and look into what activities are required, at a system of activities which is required to support those choices in reality. And then we move from activities to capabilities, looking at what competencies, what management systems, what infrastructure, what relationships are required. And those capabilities are something that we might already have, or something that we don't have and need to be acquired or developed. We're talking about capabilities which, in case they exist, they might be reconfigured or redesigned in order to fit what is required, again, for supporting the strategic choices that we have made. And once we have that understanding, we need to understand that there are gaps between what is required and what we have. And therefore, we need to define the strategic gaps, which are the most important deliverable of a strategy. If we don't have a set of strategic gaps identified which needs to be closed, then I would say that we don't have a strategy, or at least not an instrumental one. So therefore, we need to understand which are the gaps required.
Mihai, you need to unmute. Yeah. Something happened. Sorry. Yeah. Mihai, you need to unmute. Can you try to unmute from your side? Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Okay, sorry, I don't know why it muted. So once we have defined the strategic gaps, because if we can have that system of activities and that capability system tomorrow morning, we might say that we have accomplished our strategy. But obviously, we're talking about things which cannot be done by tomorrow morning. It's going to take us months or years to be able to set up that system of activities and that system of capabilities, to have it in place in order to turn our strategic choices from the whiteboard and from the desire to the reality of our business. So that is something that we need to do as part of the strategy execution loops. Before we do that, however, we need to do two things. First of all, to check the feasibility of our strategy. Are we able to implement it? And also to check the viability of the resulting business model. Okay, we implement the strategy, we have a different kind of business based on the choices that we have made. Will it be viable from the financial, but also from non-financial points of view? And we need to check that, because if we have a strategy, we implement an idea and certain choices, at the end of that implementation, we have a business model that doesn't survive from the economic point of view, from the financial point of view, or from other points of view, then obviously we haven't done a good job with our strategy. We need to understand the strategic destination, and if that is something that will be first and foremost financially viable in terms of cost structure and revenue streams, and understand if that is something that will survive. It's a minimal kind of checkpoints that needs to go. We need to go through in order to understand that we're not making a terrible mistake with our strategy. In case any of these validations are failing, we need to go back to strategy and reformulate it and select other choices and other activities and other capabilities, other strategic gaps, and we go again through possible multiple iterations until we can pass through the feasibility and viability gateway, and we can move to strategy execution. In strategy execution, we are working, as I have said, mostly with a methodology created by Kaplan and Norton for the balanced scorecard, and we have a number of perspectives. And what you see on the right are the let's say the updated format for the balanced scorecard perspective. And 2 years ago, Professor Kaplan has introduced them through a Harvard Business Review article, and it's an extension of the traditional ones. For instance, we don't have the financial perspective; we have the outcomes, because it was even before the objectives in that perspective are not just of financial nature. Then we don't just have the customer perspective; we have the stakeholders perspective, because in strategy approaches like the ones that looks at the society and at the environment, we have to have objectives which are a better position, not just for our customers, but also for the business environment that we operate in. Also the fourth perspective is not just it was learning and growth, and it has been extended in concept by being called enablers, and it looks at a little more than just the traditional LNG perspective, which in fact was called in various ways in balanced scorecard implementations. And I think that enablers, it's a better let's say terminology for that perspective. I would like to answer a colleague's question. Can you repeat it, please? It's about how do we, it's something related to competitors. Khalid, can you repeat the question, or can you help me by reading it from the
yes.
Yeah, the question is, how do we build competitor response to our strategy?
Well, competitor response, probably you're talking about how would the competitors respond to our strategy, maybe, because there are two things that we need to consider here. First of all, we create a strategy, and we take into consideration our competitor strategy at the same time, and try not to overlap with their set of strategic choices. Let me go back just to here. So if we position on the same diagram our strategic choices and our competitor strategic choices, it would be ideal if they don't overlap. If we compete on the same things as our competitors, that's not a good thing, because in the end that will lead to commoditization and to a price war and something like this. So therefore, we need to do the same exercise that we're doing for our our positioning, also to look at the positioning, not just current, but anticipated future positioning of our competitors, and place it on the same map and understand if we are differentiated from the point of view of the problems that we're trying to solve and from the point of view of solutions that we're trying to deliver to the market. Ideally, we shouldn't address exactly the same problems that our competitors, and we shouldn't deliver the same type of solutions as they are delivering to the market. So that's how we relate to competition, both in terms of creating a competitive advantage that is not the same competitive advantage that our competitors are trying to build or to defend. And at the same time, we can look at not just the current positioning of our competitors, but also we can explore the based on information existing in the market of what might be their next strategic positioning, and again try to differentiate from them by not making the same choices that they have made, or the same choices that we're expecting them to make in the future. So that's a tool very useful for competitive analysis. So just one more sentence about this one. The fact is that if we place our strategic gaps that resulted from formulating our strategy in a structure that is from the conceptual point of view similar to the strategy map that we use in strategy execution, we see that we can actually bridge the anecdotal gap between strategy and execution by understanding how do we assemble the strategic gaps into strategic objectives. And I would mention that in practical implementation, when you reach the list of strategic gaps, there are typically 100 or 200 strategic gaps, because imagine each people from each function understanding what they need to create or to develop or to reconfigure or redesign in their functions in order to support those choices. Each department, each team comes with their set of requirements, and that results in a lot of strategic gaps. We can't work with 100 strategic gaps in managing them, so we need to aggregate them into strategic objectives. We look at clusters of strategic gaps, and these are clusters that we can identify in these perspectives for the gaps that result from our strategy, and see where the convergence is, and morph them into strategic objectives. That's something that has been done even initially in the strategic map by looking at the value gap. But the value gap was not defined in terms of strategy gaps, and we have a more instrumental way of actually creating the strategy map and the strategic objectives based on the strategic gaps which resulted from the formulation of our strategy. So that's how we enter the strategy execution. And I would like to mention that if we have a strategy for a couple of years, for instance, we might have a strategy for defending our current competitive advantage for 3 years, and we have another 5 years for launching the new competitive advantage. So we have a multi-annual horizon for our strategy. But the execution cycle, we cannot plan, or the practice has taught us that we cannot plan for many years. Typically, the cycle here on the execution loop it's 1 year, and for a variety of reasons it's that, because we have an annual budgeting cycle, we have sales plans and marketing plans and production plans, which typically spend 1 year. And it's ideal to have a cycle where we take a share of the strategic gaps that we transform into strategic objectives for 1 year. And once we close those gaps, we go and take another share of the strategic gaps and use it for the next cycle. And we might have multiple cycles of strategy execution within the same cycle of strategy formulation, until we need to reformulate significantly our strategy. So the stages here are those that many of you are familiar with from the Kaplan and Norton framework for strategy execution. We have the strategic plan, which is based on objectives and measures and strategic initiatives. And we also have not just the performance dimension, we have the risk, and also we should add the resilience dimension, which is similar to risk, but looks at the ways of pivoting our business in case some black swans like the pandemic, like regional wars, like other things that are happening and are turning our business and our business environment upside down, and we need to be resilient and to avoid the reasons for fragility in our business. So it's something. There are three dimensions there: performance, risk, and resilience. Then once we have created our strategic plan, we need to go through the alignment phase, which means that we do something called vertical alignment and horizontal alignment. And in the end, we need to reach the individual alignment because that's where the strategy is executed. And we need to ensure that the whole organization is in line with the organizational structures, the whole set of teams and departments and down to individuals are synchronized. And then we have an aligned strategic plan. This is coordinated by the Office of Strategy Execution. It's the same part as the traditional Office of Strategy Management, but it's focused on the execution cycle. While Office of Strategy Management is also coordinating the strategy formulation, the strategy experimentation, as we have seen before. And then once we have an aligned strategic plan, we go to the operational integration. You know that we need to synchronize the budget with our strategic plan, protect the stratex, which is the sum of budgets of our strategic initiatives. We need to synchronize with our continuous improvement. We might have a Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma or a TQM or a 5S program in place, and we need to guide where the improvements needs to be made, because as you might remember, some of the gaps are related not to capability that we don't have. They relate to capability that we have, but they are not adequately configured, and we need to improve them and reconfigure them. And that is something that it's the typical scope for continuous improvement, for the continuous improvement project. The strategy just sets the priorities for the continuous improvement, because we're not improving in parallel everything in our organization. We need to have a set of priorities, and strategies is ideally positioned to set those priorities. And the OSM, it's you might remember that the Office of Strategy Management has been introduced by Kaplan and Norton as a set of responsibilities that needs to be in place during the cycle of strategy execution in various stages. When we formulate the strategy, when we set the plans, where we do the strategy reviews, when we apply the corrective actions. So all these things needs to be coordinated by an organizational function. And this is just the splitting of that function between the two cycles, because we have two significant cycles, one for formulation and one for execution. It's the same OSM, which is split between coordinating the strategy formulations, the strategy experimentation, and then we have the same, or the other half of the OSM, which is focused on the strategy execution cycle, and it actually has the majority of the functions that have been described by Kaplan and Norton in the balanced scorecard framework. Okay, so if we have the strategy integrated with our operation plans, with the budget, with the continuous improvement, then we can pass through strategies to executing the plan. So that is something that happens next, and it's again the stages which have been described in the Kaplan and Norton balanced scorecard framework, and this is related first of all to strategy review. which allows us to observe the progress of our strategic initiatives. We look at the results, and we need to take into consideration the what is called the realization period of the strategic initiatives, and that is valid because the outcomes of not just the outputs, but the outcomes resulting from our strategic initiatives take some time after we have finished the projects themselves. So we need to take into consideration that realization period in order to be able to adequately understand what our KPIs are telling us. And obviously, then we take corrective actions. Typically, corrective actions are taken upon the strategic initiatives. And it is important to understand that the role of the KPIs in strategy executions is not really monitoring processes or even the outcomes of the initiatives per se. These are it's a system of validating or invalidating all the hypotheses that we have used, and in all the stages that you have seen, we have employed strategic hypothesis. We have employed the assumptions because our strategy is about the future. We are forced to use assumptions and hypotheses. It's a construction of hypotheses. Even the strategic plan, hypotheses and assumptions, there are chains of interlinked hypotheses that we have used, and at the end of these chains are the KPIs that exist in our scorecards. And we need to understand that whenever a KPI turns red, it means that we have hit an invalid hypothesis, and strategic initiatives were not correctly related to strategic objectives, or a capability was not actually a required capability. Well, we have missed one capability that is not existing, and therefore our scorecard tells us that some hypotheses have not been invalid along the chains of hypotheses that we have employed for formulating or for strategic planning. So that's something that we need to take into consideration. And then it's the last thing that we must do, which is the validation of all the hypotheses, mainly related to strategy formulation, and also to look into the changes that happen in the meantime in the business environment. And the way we do this is to set in place an early warning systems, which looks at all the assumptions related to external environment, to our industry, or even to outside of our industry. And if something changes there, it means that our strategy is no longer valid entirely. So we need to go back and reformulate the strategy. And also, if we see that there are significant hypotheses that are invalid, we need to go back to that point in our sequence of stages and modify the components which depended on those hypotheses, which turned out to be invalid. So this is how we work with the system, allowing us to have an adaptive strategy based on continuously validating hypotheses and reformulating our strategy. So that's how the system works. I bet that now you can see that the diagrams that we have started from is no longer complex. Explained step by step. It's something very logical, and it's actually the ways that we should formulate the strategy and create the strategic plans, consecutive ones, and execute them and turn back and adapt the strategy. That's again, in all what I have described is nothing that I have invented. It's just connecting the dots of existing concepts and frameworks and the theories. It's just a way that we should assemble them in order to have a consistent way of dealing with strategy formulation and strategy execution. I will just finish with just a couple of words. There is an initiative that has started to provide a training course related to what I have described. The first iteration, it's one that happens in January and February. Actually, it's most of January, and it's a course that anyone can enroll. There are still places available. It's a cohort-based course, which again goes through each of the stages not just through theory, but also through practice. We have a software platform that has been developed for the purpose of enabling this course and enabling the practice sessions, and we can create a strategy for a case study. We can create a strategic plan, and we can see how it works. We will also have some simulations which allow us to get some possible consequences of the decisions that we take inside the team.
Fantastic. Yeah.
The gap analysis is done by looking at on one hand on what is required, and then looking again at what exists in our organization. Which activities do we do? Which capabilities do we have? And we go capability by capability and understand which is missing and needs to be developed or acquired, and which exists but is not adequately configured and need to be redesigned or reconfigured in order to fit the required format. So we just go capability by capability and see if we have it or we don't have it, or we have it but it needs to be modified, and therefore we said we get the set of strategic gaps in the end.
Great.
Just one word. So this course that I've mentioned, it's based on cohorts, which means that we have a cohort for Asia Pacific, we have a cohort for Europe, Middle East, and Asia, and then we have another one for the Americas. And for you, the cohort it's set in order to be available as sessions at comfortable times. You just need to go to explaining -strategy.com and find out more about the course.